Collection classes have the ability to create and use an iterator to move through a collection. Iterators are most often used behind the scenes, such as with a for-each loop. Let's look at how we can create and use an iterator explicitly to traverse a collection of data. Most of the time when working with a collection, you don't have to use the underlying iterator. For example, if you want to display all the items in a collection, you can just use a for-each loop. But it might be good to see how iterators work just so I have an understanding of how the for-each loop works behind the scenes. So let's create a new array list. And we'll add a few names. Now, we have to create an iterator object and call it from our array list. So here's how we do that. So now IT is an iterator over the names collection. Now we can use it. So we'll write a while loop, and our condition is while the iterator has data to iterate over. That's one way to look at it. Or while there's still another element in the collection to be dealt with, then write it out. So the way we write it out, whoops. Let's back up there, there we go, is by calling the next method of the iterator object. Think of an iterator like a pointer or a cursor for database people. And the pointer is pointing at the beginning of the collection when you create it. Where I write iterator it equal names.iterator, I've created a new iterator and it's pointing right before the first element. Every time I call the next method will move that cursor to the next element of the collection. Our while loop runs as long as there is a next element to move to. That's what hasNext does. It returns true as long as there's an element to move to. Once it's reached the last element, then hasNext will return false when it looks to see if there are any more elements in the collection. So given that, I can just run the program and it displays my three names. This is exactly what the for each loop does. It just does it using code that all programmers are more familiar with. A for loop. True, it's a for each loop, but again, most programmers are familiar with that. Not as many programmers are familiar with working with iterators, although the use of collections has become so great now in many, many languages that most programmers have been exposed to iterators sometime in their education. So to summarize, iterator is just a behind-the-scenes way to move through a collection. You can usually achieve the same thing with a for each loop. But if you want a little more control, or you just like to do things at the bare bones level, you can use iterators instead of for each loops when you want to move through the items in a collection.